Hello and welcome to the inspirational talk to kick off this Postdoc Day 2021. Please welcome with me Rektor Professor Michael Hoch, welcome to you. Dean Professor Cornelia Richter, also welcome to you. And Provost Holger Gottschalk, welcome to you.
Good morning.
We are going to talk about leadership in academia, but we're going to talk about it from your personal experience and perspective. Professor Hoch, in your scientific career, you've probably been led before you became rector of this university. When you experienced good leadership, in your opinion, what were the ingredients?
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. Maybe I will introduce myself first. So my name is Michael Hoch. I'm the rector of the university. And before that, a couple of years ago, I was a scientist, of course, and my field is developmental genetics and developmental biology. So, of course, you know, I was a PhD student too. And what was very important for me in my laboratory a long time ago was a vibrant research environment. And this is what my boss, my former boss, made sure of, namely to make this an international lab. And we were working on really key questions of the field. And I think this is a very important prerequisite, you know, for also what was very important for my career later. And at the same time, so the lab was very competitive. At the same time, it was very important that we were a team. So team building was very important. And I took this, you know, for my career as well. So when I established my lab, so these were two very important components: get the best people, you know, and then try to create a team atmosphere.
What were the effects on you, your motivation and your performance of these ingredients?
You know, what you need as a student, and I guess the same as a postdoc, is trust. You know, that's very important. So your mentor has to have trust in you. But at the same time, there has to be a scientific standard, you know, in the laboratory. So it has, you know, the quality has to be high. People have to be, you know, critical also, and to create an atmosphere where people can be really critical is also very important for your own progression. And this is basically what I also try to do in my laboratory.
Thank you for this insight. Professor Richter, what were your experiences with being led before becoming a leader in a university environment yourself?
Yes, thank you very much, and good morning from my side as well. I'm Cornelia Richter and I'm a theologian, so it's the humanities now, completely different field to biology, or let's say to the whole area of the life sciences. Because we are working with text, we are working with very traditional, you know, settings. And within these, it's very important to have role models as a female professor. And in this board here, I think I will try to introduce that point a bit more. The most important thing was my very first boss, she was a female professor, very internationally renowned. And she really introduced me to the scientific community, just like you said it, by best standards and by international contacts. And, you know, she made sure that I knew how to, and now I use a strange word, how to behave, how to address people, how to get into contact with them, how to learn small talk, one of the most difficult things. And then, but then as well, how to try to be always as perfect as possible in what you say, what you write, what you think. And that would not have been possible at all for me to learn if she would not constantly have challenged me. You know, as a student, she took me to conferences, and that opened the gate to the scientific community. Other leaders I had, male leaders, they did quite the same. They always challenged me between giving me a lot of freedom, but at the same time, demanding things I would never have thought I could do. Because then one of my bosses, who was not very organized, he said, well, could you know, I missed that, and tomorrow we have to deliver that, and I can't do that. Can't you step in? And I said, no way, I can't, because I never thought about the topic before. And he said, well, I think you can. You do that. And I said, no, I can't. He said, well, you can. You do that. And somehow I did. And I don't know what the outcome was of that. But still, in the end, I did. And that was the same level of trust that you addressed.
It must have been a good outcome. You wouldn't be here otherwise, I assume. But you said you were being challenged and encouraged. So what did that do to your motivation and also your performance?
Well, you know, the performance in that times was quite well. I tried to do it as good as possible because I was trusted. But at the same time, it made me learn myself and become aware of the strength, but also of the things I had to develop. And when I'm leading today, I try to do the same with my students. You know, to make them go somewhere, to encourage them to hand in applications, to go abroad, seek the international community. But in the end, whatever they do, whatever they have to prepare, for example, an application or whatever, in the end, I'm the one staying responsible. Because if they are successful, then it's all theirs. But if they are not successful, if something happens, then it would be my responsibility. And that was a very important thing for myself, to have a fallback option. If I failed, I could say, you know, there's a problem, can you help? And then my bosses would help. So that's what I try to provide, to be in the back and say, okay, if you fail, it's my fault. But if you succeed, you go and do things.
All right, thank you for that. Provost Gottschalk, what were your experiences with being led before, you know, taking this position and leading so many people now?
Thank you very much for this question. First of all, good morning also from my side. I'm very appreciated to be here, and I would be even more appreciated if we could meet here in personal in this beautiful building, the Agalanda Center in the Sternwarte of the University of Bonn. Maybe I could give you another insight to careers at the university. I'm not a scientist anymore, and if you checked my CV, you might have seen that I left the academic track quite early. I would like to elaborate this a little bit, if it is okay. At the very beginning of my professional career, I was a research assistant, and I was involved in the process of a professorship like you. But at the same time, I was involved in a project of the administration. I accompanied a project scientifically, and this project dealt with the transformation of an accounting system and the implementation of an enterprise resources management software. And this project has a fixed time for the going live of this software. And as an economist, I was one of the few experts in finance and controlling, and I had a high level of free space to develop concepts which were needed in this project. On the other hand, I got support to learn something new, especially to steer and to manage change processes. I learned self-management, and I learned time management and so on, you know. Now I'm coming back to your question. And these are, in my opinion, the most important ingredients from my side of view. First, one has to know the targets of a project or of an institution, and it has to go hand in hand with good communication. And secondly, I think one needs a free space to develop and bring in own ideas. And third, and I think one needs to get support to learn new things which are needed to fulfill one's job. And yeah, maybe I basically appreciate this time very much. I was very motivated, but also satisfied. And if I'm looking back to this period, I think it was a best time of my whole career, with the exception of the last 5 years I've been provost of this university. Thank you.
I think everyone's very happy to hear that you added the last 5 years.
Of course.
Professor Hoch, you heard some of the ingredients that sort of sound similar to the ones that you're. Which ones can you relate most to that you heard from your two colleagues? The challenges, the being pushed out, you know, on the stage, or maybe the freedom, the targets that you can help to achieve?
I think, you know, I completely agree with my colleagues. So challenging young people, you know, is, I think, very important. One has to promote the people on the one hand, and then, of course, also demand basically something, you know, challenging them. I think and at the same time, give them the feeling of trust. I think that is very important. Independence is also very important in thinking for the young people, so you have to leave them alone for a while, you know, when they, you know, let's say create results and think about the implications, you have to leave them alone for a while so that they come up with their own thoughts before discussing them and maybe leading them into a little different direction. I think that is very important for the self-motivation. And so I can say in my career, you know, my former boss did the same with me, and that in a way led me also to understand that how fun science is, because science is tough often, you know, but it has to be, there's a fun part, and it's very important to keep this, you know, to overcome crisis which everyone had during their lab life. But it's the fascination, you see, to really to explore something that no one has explored before, and to get a result where you have to think about what this means, you know. So that is a special thrill which you can get nowhere, in my opinion. But you have to earn it in a way, and sometimes it drives you into completely different directions, things which you have never thought before. And so therefore, I would like to say that, you know, keep your fun in doing science, because this is really a privilege, and there's very few jobs I can think of where you have the same type of thrill and can have the same type of fun. I would like to say that in my career, what was also very important is to meet other people in other fields. So, for example, when I came here as a professor, you know, when I was recruited, this was in 1999, so some time ago. I was, as I said, a developmental biology with the classic topics at that time. So, fruit flies, was the system, the genetic system I was working with. Coming from that, you know, if you want the tradition of Nusslein-Volhard and Herbert Jäckle, Nusslein-Volhard, you know, who got the Nobel Prize in developmental biology in Germany. So a very strong tradition. But it was through the interaction with other people in chemistry and medicine which made me change completely my research direction. So I was then later on working on metabolism, for example, the implication of metabolism or the connection of metabolism and immune system. And I would have never done this if I had not met other people, other colleagues, experts in their fields, discussing ideas, and then all of a sudden, basically, you know, starting projects, and that led me into completely different directions. And so I'd like to also say that you have to have a certain openness, be courageous, you know, and discuss with other people. But for that, you have to be an expert yourself. So I think that's very important, to master your field. Otherwise, it will be just Me Too science, you know. Mm-hmm. So, okay.
All right, so someone has to hold the space for these young scientists, and that's usually someone in a leadership position. So for you to be able to do all that, are you still thrilled about your research, Professor Richter?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You know, currently I'm at the dean of the faculty, so there's not that much space for research. But at the same time, it's the research time that's feeling like holiday. It has almost lost the character of being at work. If I'm able to proceed with my research group on resilience, even though that is the most important work I'm doing, perhaps, but it has absolutely lost that character. It's freedom now, to spend whole days on conferences on that topic, and that is something I think that has been prepared on in the long run, because what you need is to survive. And I'm coming back to the idea Professor Hoch said on that science can be tough, because I think the postdoc phase, that's an important thing. Science can be very, very, very tough and demanding, and it can be demanding in a way that you might think you have to fail, you can't stand that. But what you need then is dedication. It's not just, you know, being busy. It's not just investing your time. It's not just being present for hours and hours and hours on end. you have to be dedicated, because if you're not dedicated, then you feel there's a pressure put on you. But that's not how what the academic life is. The academic life is life. It's a scientific community, and you have to be part of that. You want to be part of that. So spending the day at the institute, spending the day with the colleagues, that is what is the kind of the most important value in life, apart from personal relationships, of course, family and whatever. But you don't have to feel you're going to have to work, because then you want to stop at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and that won't work. Not at all. You have to, you know, the spirit can't be forced. The ideas come in the free times, or they come when you don't expect them. They might even come in a conference, in a conference or in an administration thing. You know, sit there and have to.
Even now.
Even now, yes. Things like that. So that's what you have to, and yet you have to follow that line of inspiration and that very moment, and you can't stop then. So pen and pencil always, or the laptop always with you, and then just forget what time or day it is.
So again, it's someone, if you're going back to the leadership in academia, you need to let people go, you need to let them think independently, I heard. You need to inspire them, and you also need to push them to their limits. These are some things I heard. In your career, which is a little different than the scientific path, what do you need to do as a leader to inspire your people?
I think it's a little bit different to my colleague. I think there are at least two things are quite important. I think on the one side, a leader has to care for good communication, so that all team members and members of the institution know about the targets, and so that they can contribute as well as they could also to the targets of the team, but also of the institution. And on the other side, I think it is furthermore necessary that leaders give their team members a leap of faith, I would say. I think it is necessary to get change processes started, to get things done, to have for the beginning of the process is quite important. And I'm strongly convinced that the experiences and knowledge which is needed for such processes, they are usually already available in institutions, but also in teams. And one has to set them free, these ideas which are already existent. That, I think, are the most important things. And it's quite important for leaders to do these things, to make good communication, but also to give this leap of faith.
Professor Hoch, we're looking at the future of the university today, the Postdoc group. What do you expect, or what do you look for in future researchers, leaders for this university?
So, as I was mentioning before, I think scientific excellence, that is very important. So, therefore, try to be the best in your field, right? So this is quite something, and which I guess is a lifelong learning process. But I think to have such kind of an aim is very important. So try to be an expert in your field. I think that's the essential condition for everything, because only if you master your field to a great extent, you can basically, you know, also take leadership, right? Because this is something which doesn't come automatically, but you have to earn the respect of the people. So it's not that because of the position, this is just, you know, helps you out for a little bit. But if it comes down, let's say, to critical moments, it's the respect that the people have against you, for you, right? Which in a way determines whether they follow you or whether they leave you alone. And this is really also true for the leadership of the university. I think, for example, our success, and I can say this, Andreas, for Andreas Zimmer also, and for the dean, and also for you, of course, Holger, you know, we were only able to be so successful in the Excellence Initiative because our peers in the university on all levels respected our ideas and followed our ideas. And this is the beauty of the idea, you know, to the beauty of the strategy. This is basically what people how to say, motivated to follow a common path. And this is true, I think, for a laboratory, for the scientific community too. You have to basically, you have to try to be a brilliant scientist, right? Which I know this is very tough, but I think this should be the goal. And then everything comes after that. So for example, people then give you positions in the institute, you will become the director at one point, you know, to have more responsibility. Then you maybe get the head of a division because people like the way you basically handle problems also, you know, like the way you treat people and so, you know. And then all of a sudden people say that, well, you could be the head of a university, you know, because you have strategic thinking, you know, you have a commitment. And so all this comes afterwards, I think, you know. And so that the key is to be, you know, to try to be as brilliant as you can in your own field.
Professor Richter, what do you think young leaders who aspire to become, you know, maybe heads of departments or universities in the future need, especially in the University of Bonn environment?
I would agree with everything the rector said, but I would just add one more, perhaps a bit more critical perspective, and that's for the female researchers, especially because I often witness in application procedures that people try to be very good in their field, but to be excellent needs a bit of strategic planning of research as well, and of presentation, and what you have to display of yourself in order to be among the best. And then there is things like international contacts, having been abroad, like having a list of publications, having a list of papers. Well, that's what most people have. But then also, how do you present that? And how do you interact, for example, in application procedures or whatever? And especially the female candidates we often see, they're kind of a bit modest and a bit soft and a bit nice. But that's not what you need in that process. You have to go forward, and especially as a future leader, you have to know what you want. And there was, in my life, there was one scene that impressed me most. It was a female professor whom I did not know that well, and she was on a postdoc day like that, but I think we were doctoral students even, so very young. And then she said, well, what do you want to become? And then we said, well, we want to finish the PhD, you know, perhaps. What that would be nice to finish the PhD. And she said, well, that won't work. If you say it like that, you will never become a professor. What you want is the full professorship. And there is no doubt that you have to go for that now. And we said, well, as a PhD student, do you think that's a bit, bit much? She said, no. You have to want, and in Germany it was, ihr müsst die C4 wollen. C4, and that was back then it was the highest possible professorship.
You have to have goals, you know, there has to be
have to have
something to aspire to.
And not any goals, but it have to be the highest possible goals. And that made a huge impression on me. I thought she was mad, but it stayed with me. It stayed with me, and very soon, once I entered the postdoc phase, I thought she was absolutely right. Either you go for that or not. And I think there's a lot of, you know, tough strategy as well, tough presentation as well.
Thank you. Provost Gottschalk, for your area of responsibility, you also need future leaders at the University of Bonn. What are you looking for? What do they have to bring into this to become successful?
And first of all, I think I'm very happy, and it's quite good that our mindsets are quite close to each other, even if we have totally different responsibilities. But I think there are, and I would like to add something, which is, in my opinion, true for both sides, for the academia, but also for the administration. And I would like to add something a little bit more pathetically. In my opinion, if this general condition we just talked about are fulfilled, I would value if leaders would be good examples for their team members. So if it's true what we just said, you have to be a good example that people can have orientation and can look at what you are doing. And the other thing is, leaders should try to bring our institution, the University of Bonn, a little bit ahead day by day. I think these are two things which are quite important. Even if we are not reaching our targets exactly at a certain point, we at least have to try to get this target at a certain point. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Any other ingredients you look for in future leaders?
I think everything was basically said in a way of, what I personally, but this is my character, what I would like to stress again, that what people have to, if you discuss with a person or so, what I like to see is that people are enthusiastic, that there's something inside which, if you want, glows, right, for the science and so. And if that's the case, let's say for me personally, I'm then fascinated. And maybe, you see, you may ask why after, a scientific career, one basically takes the job of a rector where you, in a way, you leave your lab behind, and, science at a certain point is basically finished to a certain extent. And the reason why I'm still fascinated and why this maybe is the best job, I would even say, to be a rector of a university, is because you meet so many people in so many different disciplines. And whenever I meet these people, I try to explore how they, where this enthusiasm comes from, what fascinates them, what basically made them go through this, ups and downs of an academic career. And it fascinates myself if I see, the enthusiasm of the people from the humanities to the life sciences. And that is really something great. And what is also very good, and you can do that also in your laboratory if you have a group, is, as was said, strategic planning. That is on our level now, it is strategic planning where the university would be in 5 or 10 years from now. And that is also a fascinating thing. So in a way, it's creativity, collecting ideas from others. That's also very important. You have to be so self-confident that you can also collect ideas of others, That is, if you can do that, that just says that you're, as a personality, you're a strong personality. If you can, let's say, have others also let them contribute. That's my opinion. So collecting ideas is also very important. And that was also, I think, this is why we were so successful. And let me say something about the administration. Holger, I think you're absolutely right. We need also the best people for the administration. And in a way, it's not very different. Because also, even though maybe people have a more fixed schedule, it's still, for us, the best situation is always when you see that this person in the administration has the same type of enthusiasm and motivation than we have, namely to enable us, if they are enablers of our science. And that I think, to find these people is not so easy, but I think we have quite a number here at the university, and this is why also we are very successful.
Well, you mentioned earlier, Professor Hoch, that your experience was that your boss in the first lab gathered a good team, and that seems to be true for a big endeavor or enterprise like a university as well. It has to be a good team on all sides.
Yeah.
I saw you raise your microphone, so I assume you want to add something or have something to contribute.
Again, I would simply agree. That's just, again, perhaps one idea. Young people often think they have to wait until they are asked. But I would say, don't wait until you're invited. Just come. Come and participate. I mean, it's of course, we wouldn't ask you to throw forward your personality and say, well, here I am and I'm the most important. That's not what I mean. But, come forward and say, well, that's interesting. How can I participate? Is there a chance for me to be part of that game? Don't wait. Come.
And that seems to be true for the female researchers a little more than the male.
Especially.
Yes, at least I heard that from you. So some of our listeners might ask themselves now, how do I make that leap, you know? I'm not there yet. I mean, it's nice for them to talk. They've all, you know, made the leap. They've successfully, you know, made a career. How am I going to make that leap? You know, I've never led a team. I maybe have just finished my thesis. What are some of the suggestions, tips, tricks, maybe of some of the ideas that the university can actually help? I mean, we are going to hear today about some of the ideas and the offers that the university has. But from you.
Thank you very much. I think I was really looking forward to this question. I think it's very important, very interesting. First of all, you shouldn't worry about this too much. I think it's a big challenge, of course, but I think you can also get or overcome this challenge. When I became the leader of a division the first time, I actually started without any preparations, without any experiences. It just happened from one day to another. So I think it was a big challenge for me, and in this function I had to oversee almost 25 people from an age between 18 and 63. And yeah, I think, to be honest, it was a really big challenge. And you should ask my former team members how I overcame this challenge. I actually don't know. But I've actually a tip or an advice for you if you want. What me helped very much were meeting with peers of mine, and we analyzed and discussed special leadership situations, and we gave each other collegial advice to overcome special situations. And they're almost always the same. So you're talking about the same problems, the same challenges, and you can help each other to overcome this. That's maybe a good advice.
So don't try and do it alone. Find a group of people that will support you. What is your tip, trick, suggestion?
Exactly the same. Talk to others. But the one thing is the peer-to-peer, and I really completely agree on that. And the other thing is there's a kind of luck as well, part of that procedure. And so you have to be in the right place at the right time. And that happens, as I said, if you participate. So be there, do communicate what you're interested in, and be part of the game. Because if people don't know you, they won't know you in the application procedures. But if they know the face, if they say, oh, I've heard that name already, didn't she or he give a paper wasn't that interesting? Then the chance is raised. So be part of the game.
So make yourself visible in a way.
Yes, that was much better communicated, yes. Make yourself
it can
visible.
be in different ways, you know. It can be in your research area, maybe it can be in extracurricular activities or engagement in something that the university is also engaged in. There's a number of opportunities, I assume.
So my advice is simple. Ask the vice rector for research, you know. Basically send him emails, bombardment of emails, Andreas. I mean, you know how to solve all the problems. No, but there is something to it. I think, yeah, ask your peers, but also don't hesitate to ask like us, for example, right? And I think this postdoc day maybe connects you also to some of the people. And of course, we have at the, from the university side in the Argelander Center also people that you can approach and that can help you to maybe to get advice on certain aspects, right? But also, we would like to keep in a way, although it may sound difficult, the hierarchy is quite flat. So therefore, basically, it is really true. You can send us emails too. We cannot solve all the problems or all the challenges. That's also true. But at least we may be able to connect you to somewhere where people may help you.
We talked a lot about what to do. Is there something that you experienced that you would advise people shouldn't repeat so they can learn from your experience? Anything that didn't work out where you say, we've crossed that bridge, but we don't advise for anyone to try the same way? Anything you can think of? Yes?
Yes. Sorry.
Go ahead.
taking things personal, and taking things personal that are not meant in a personal way, but they are part of the structures at university. There's a certain dynamic within the scientific community, and procedures are as they are. So, and there is also some sorts of interaction that are not only established, but that are like traditional cultures within the disciplines. But they've got nothing to do with you personal. You just have to know them and to distinguish between, am I really addressed now in a personal way, or is it just how things work? So, and that sometimes it's difficult for young people to accept criticism, for example. And then they think they are addressed, they themselves are kind of hit, but you're not. It's just the topic that has to be discussed, or it's a difficult competitive structure, and the competition means one person will win and the other one might lose. But still, it's nothing personal, and I think that's a very, very important message. So if something goes wrong, don't pull back. Just take a moment to consider what was it that went wrong, but don't really fall out of the game or whatever.
Thank you. Professor Hoch.
So maybe what I would stress at the end of our discussion in a way is that try to get an honest opinion of your mentor, for example, or your mentors. If possible, have 1, 2, or 3, And this is because not everyone is made for an academic career, but still there's other career paths basically out there. And the question is, to be aware what maybe your talents are and whether they maybe go to a different direction, you have to have someone telling you. Because the problem is, of course, if you're in the middle of your project, right, there's always the next goal that can be reached, and you always think, well, give it another month and then, things will work out, and sometimes it doesn't, right? So therefore, it's very important to get an honest opinion, and this is also what the mentor is for, to really give you an honest opinion on, what your strategic options are, and then to connect you at the same, maybe to other career paths. And you have to do the same as a leader of your lab, although it may be tough, because you would like your projects to go forward. You need hands at the bench to do that, right? But at the same time, you have to keep the people in mind and what your responsibility for their career paths. And this transition is sometimes very tough. So my advice would be aware of your responsibility also, and try to get honest and critical feedback, right? And then, of course, the university is also there, the Agelander Center, to open up maybe different options. And people have talents, everyone has talents, right? It's just a matter of getting them going in a sense. And you need maybe sometimes an outside opinion to make sure. There's a second advice I'd like to say. See, what is is a challenge for me too, and I think for you too, is that we normally deal with characters. These are people which are not basically homogeneous the way they are, but they're completely different. And this is this heterogeneity, which in a sense makes science go, because you need this diversity if you want, in scientific, but also character-wise, culture-wise, and so in an international environment. But then sometimes people misunderstand each other. And if you realize that this is the case, try to tackle the problem at the very beginning and not at the end. And sometimes, one needs help, right, to do that, because there's some kind of moderation, because you don't know exactly what's going on, people don't tell you exactly. So then don't hesitate to ask someone if you have a problem, to help you. There's also, at the university, we have many different people dealing with this issue. And so that is my advice. Be aware that these problems can come up, and try to attack them at the very beginning, if possible, and not at the very end.
Thank you. Any experience you'd like to share?
I just want to add on this last point. I think you are all in the academia and academic process, and I think you shouldn't wait too long if you have the feeling to leave this track and you need some advice. I think it's also possible to make a career outside the academia, and I think you should be brave to think about this. You should ask for advice or look for other careers, maybe like me. I think it works. So be brave if you have some troubles or some problems. Talk to people who give you advice or can give you advice. I think that's also quite important.
Well, we heard that role models are very important. I think everyone who's participating in this day now saw 3 role models that are going to answer one last question for me. I know it might be a question that has already been answered, but I would like to know, would you do it all over again if you were a postdoc now?
I wouldn't change anything.
How about you?
Me too.
Man, science is so fun. And if you want, we were so lucky, so I wouldn't change anything.
Well, thank you very much for this inspirational talk. It inspired me. I hope it inspired all of you who were listening and watching. I'm handing the mic over to Petra Best again, and she's going to tell you what's next on the schedule for this Postdoc Day 2021. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.